Alien girl brings human a sealed box, but human opens it and finds a message from herself. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let's return to our main character. Midnight hummed across the outer listening post as Ethan Ward tightened the last bolt on a stubborn coolant pipe, the cold metal biting through his gloves. The station lights flickered again, throwing stripes of red across his face as the storm outside pressed against the hull. He exhaled, watching his breath fog inside his helmet before he slid the visor up. Another long night, another shift alone. That was when the proximity alarm pulsed, a single low chime that didn't belong in a quiet hour. Ethan raised his head. The docking bay sensors showed an incoming vessel, small, unregistered, drifting in slowly as if carried by the storm rather than powered by engines. He wiped his hands on his jumpsuit, muttering under his breath, and headed for the airlock. The bay doors opened with a hiss, warm air rolling toward the cold chamber inside. Through the glass, he saw a slender figure step out of a compact shuttle, her silhouette framed by the flashing runway lights. Her skin glowed a soft turquoise, like deep ocean water catching the moon. She carried something close to her chest, wrapped in faint silver shielding. Ethan approached, boots clanking on the grated floor, his heart thumping louder than the storm outside. The girl looked up. Her eyes were pale and calm, almost too calm for someone arriving unannounced in a storm. She held out the object, a sealed black box, its surface smooth and humming softly, as if holding its own heartbeat. "You are the human engineer," she said. Her voice was quiet but steady. "My name is Leary. I was told only a human could keep this safe." Ethan blinked. "Safe? From what?" She shook her head, damp silver-blue hair brushing her cheeks. "I cannot say. Not yet. The box must be opened when the time feels right." Ethan glanced at the glowing lines running along its edges. It was warm, almost alive. "Is it dangerous?" he asked. "Only if opened without purpose," she replied. "And only if opened by me." A gust of cold air swept across the bay as the outer doors sealed behind her, her cloak fluttering like a sheet of captured starlight. Ethan gestured toward the main corridor. "Come inside before you freeze. We'll figure out what this is." As they stepped into the station, the lights dimmed for a breath, as if the circuitry itself recognized the box and hesitated. Ethan felt the weight of it, even though he wasn't holding it. Leary kept her arms around it protectively, her expression unreadable. He didn't know why, but he sensed the box wasn't just carrying a message. It was carrying a future, hers, and somehow his too. The corridor lights steadied as Ethan led Leary deeper into the station, the hum of the life support systems echoing softly around them. The sealed box in her arms emitted a faint pulse, almost like a slow heartbeat against the metal walls. Ethan kept stealing glances at it, each pulse reflecting off the visor of his helmet. He finally removed the helmet and clipped it to his belt, wanting nothing between him and whatever this girl had brought into his quiet shift. Leary's steps were light, barely making a sound against the grated floor. She looked around with practiced calm, noting every blinking panel and every faint vibration in the pipes overhead. "You live here alone?" she asked gently. Ethan rubbed the back of his neck. "Most nights. Maintenance crew rotates, but I always get the storm weeks. Better pay, more silence." She tilted her head. "Silence is not always a kindness." He offered a half smile. "Out here it usually is." They reached the diagnostics bay, a narrow room filled with monitoring screens and a central table lined with soft pads meant for fragile cargo. Ethan gestured toward it. "You can set the box here." Leary hesitated, then placed it down carefully, the silver shielding folding back like petals reacting to the room's warmth. The box settled with a gentle thud, absorbing the ambient light until its surface looked matte and impossibly dark. Ethan leaned in close, hands behind his back to avoid brushing it. "This is advanced. Not just alien tech, I mean older, layered, like it was. Built by someone who wanted it to last longer than a lifetime." Leary nodded once. "It was." His brow lifted. "You know who made it?" "My family," she said quietly. "Generations ago. Or perhaps later." Time is not linear for those who created it. Ethan blinked. Time is not linear? She pressed her palm against the top of the box. The surface responded with a faint shimmer under her hand. Some among my people believed in a cycle. A way to send warnings back through a loop. A message meant for the one who could change the result. Ethan straightened. You think I am that person? I was told only a human could open it safely, she replied. Someone who sees choice differently than we do. The station gave a soft groan as the storm outside thickened, making the lights flicker for a heartbeat. Ethan steadied the control panel instinctively. Why bring it to me? There are thousands of humans closer to your home systems. Her gaze dropped to the box, her silver blue eyes reflecting its dark shape. Because the message inside is for me, and I could not open it alone. Ethan looked at her, suddenly sensing the weight she carried. Not fear exactly, but the strain of someone standing at a crossroads she did not want to face. He stepped to the side of the table and activated the scanners, the device producing a low, warm hum. The first readings appeared on the screen, showing layers of encrypted patterns shifting like tiny galaxies. Whatever is inside, Ethan murmured. We should go slow. That seems like the kind of box you open only once. Leary's voice softened. Yes, that is why I needed a human. The lights flickered again, this time longer, as if the station itself held its breath. The box pulsed once more, brighter than before, and both of them instinctively leaned closer. Something inside had sensed their presence. The pulse inside the box brightened until it cast a soft glow across the diagnostics bay, outlining Ethan's jaw and brushing cool light over Leary's turquoise skin. Ethan adjusted the scanner output, but the readings only grew more erratic, symbols folding over themselves like ripples caught in reverse. It is responding to you, Leary murmured. Ethan shook his head. I have not touched it. That does not matter, she said. My people designed it to sense intention. It reacts to choices, not contact. Ethan exhaled slowly, the warmth of his breath fogging the edge of the console. Then it is going to be confused. I have no idea what I am choosing yet. Leary ran a careful finger along the top of the box, without pressing down. The surface rippled beneath her touch, but did not open. It is waiting for a moment of clarity, she said. Something that tells it the future is ready to change. Ethan raised an eyebrow. You talk like this has happened before. In stories, she replied softly. Old ones. Some say the box appeared across different eras, carried by different bearers. But the message never reached its intended form. Meaning? Ethan asked. Leary hesitated. Meaning the future it warned about still happened. A quiet hum filled the room, and both of them instinctively looked toward the nearest bulkhead. The storm outside thickened again, scattering charged particles against the station hull in gentle, rhythmic taps. It sounded almost like distant rain. Ethan moved closer to Leary, studying her expression. Is that why you seem so calm? You knew coming here might not work. She did not answer for a moment. Then she said, I was told to deliver the box. I was not told the outcome. Perhaps that was mercy. Ethan crossed his arms, absorbing her words. You do not want to open it, do you? She looked down, her silver blue eyes softening. If the message comes from another version of me, then it may contain truths that could unmake the life I know, or confirm things I already fear. Such as, he asked. Leary glanced at the scanner display, where shifting patterns flickered like faint constellations. Such as the possibility that my future self asked me to change something important. Something that cannot be changed without consequence. Ethan leaned on the edge of the table, his voice gentler. You came all the way out here in a storm. That means some part of you already wants the truth. Leary's fingers tightened slightly around the edge of the table. Wanting truth does not mean being ready for it. Before Ethan could answer, the scanner emitted a soft tone. The symbols aligned into a straight line, then folded outward, forming a single glowing shape. Ethan squinted. Is that a handprint? Leary stepped closer. A dual imprint. One human, one mine. Ethan held his breath. The shape shimmered, waiting. It wants us both, he said quietly. Leary nodded once. Fear and resolve mingling in her expression. At the same time, that is how it verifies that the message is meant for who we are now, not who we were or who we will be. Ethan placed his hand a few inches above the glowing imprint, feeling a subtle warmth rise to meet him. If we do this, there is no going back, he said. Leary raised her palm beside his, the glow brushing her skin. There was never any going back, she whispered. The box pulsed again, brighter, as if recognizing them both. They exchanged a single breath of quiet understanding. Then, together, they lowered their hands. The moment Ethan's hand and Leary's hand touched the glowing imprint, the diagnostics bay fell into a soft hush. The air felt thicker, warmer, as if something unseen had settled over the room. The box responded first with a low harmonic tone that vibrated through the table, gentle and steady, like a distant chime carried across water. Ethan steadied himself against the edge of the table, watching the glow spread beneath their palms. Leary's breath hitched, barely audible, her turquoise skin catching the shifting light. The surface of the box softened into a smooth sheen, then separated into thin lines of illumination, as though it were drawing a path inward. Ethan spoke quietly, not wanting to disturb the strange balance forming around them. If it starts smoking or talking, I am stepping back. Leary's lips curved just slightly, a flicker of amusement in her pale eyes. It will not do either. At least, I do not believe it will. Ethan exhaled. Comforting. The glow beneath their hands brightened again. The scanner screens dimmed without shutting off, adjusting themselves as though granting the box full priority. Patterns on the display aligned into a single clear image, a spiraling sequence of symbols Ethan had never seen before. Leary leaned in, her eyes widening. This is a time signature, she whispered. A loop marker. Ethan blinked. Meaning the message inside is timed to appear only when the right alignment is reached. It verifies that both the human and the carrier are the correct version of themselves. Ethan looked from the screen to the box. So it knows us. It knows who we became, she corrected softly. The room hummed again, and a thin seam formed along the center of the box, splitting it with slow precision. A gentle warmth drifted from inside, carrying a faint scent like clean air after a rainstorm. Ethan leaned closer, but kept his hand steady on the imprint. Whatever is in there, it is not mechanical, he murmured. Feels personal. Leary did not move, her voice barely above a whisper. It is meant to be. A soft projection bloomed from the opening seam, rising like mist, forming a faint silhouette that brightened little by little. Ethan felt his heart press against his ribs. The shape was tall, feminine, familiar in outline. Leary drew in a shaky breath. That is me, she said quietly. Or another version of me. Ethan watched the shimmering figure settle into clarity. It was Leary, but older, standing with a steady posture and a calm expression that carried both strength and sorrow. The projection looked at them gently. A soft pulse spread outward, touching the walls of the diagnostics bay like a warm breeze. Ethan felt the sensation ripple across his skin, not dangerous, just deeply aware. Leary's voice trembled slightly. She is real. This is not symbolic. The projection lifted a hand, a gesture of greeting or reassurance, then emitted a soft tone that resonated in their ears. Ethan leaned forward, trying to understand the meaning behind the tone. Is she trying to speak? No, Leary replied. She is trying to choose the moment. The message will open only when it believes we are ready. Ethan frowned. How does it know? Leary looked at him slowly, her silver blue eyes steady and vulnerable all at once. Because we must let it. The box opens to truth, not pressure. Ethan's hand relaxed slightly on the imprint, and the glow adjusted, shifting into a softer tone. The projection brightened. Ethan swallowed. Leary, she is waiting for you. Leary nodded, her voice barely holding steady. And for you. The message is not mine alone. The projection shimmered with new light, as though preparing to reveal the first word. The room held its breath. The projection's glow steadied, forming the clear outline of Leary's older self, her posture calm and her expression carrying a weight that made the small room feel even quieter. Ethan's hand remained on the imprint, warm beneath his palm, while the air around them vibrated with a gentle harmonic tone. The older Leary lifted her head, and for a moment it felt as if she was truly looking at them, not through them. Ethan held his breath without meaning to. Leary stood very still beside him, her turquoise skin faintly illuminated by the soft light. Then the projection finally spoke, but not with words. Instead, it released a sequence of tones that gently echoed in the room, the pitch rising and falling in patterns that felt purposeful, almost like a language older than speech itself. Leary's eyes widened. This is a memory code, she whispered. A way to compress meaning without revealing it to anyone but the intended listener. Ethan frowned gently. So you can understand it? Not yet, she said. Memory codes unfold slowly. They show, rather than tell. The tones continued, and thin streams of light extended from the projection, weaving into shapes. At first they resembled abstract patterns, swirling like threads caught in a soft breeze. Then they resolved into a faint image of a landscape, shifting between seasons as if time flowed differently within the projection. Ethan watched carefully. Is that your home world? Yes, Leary said quietly. But look closely. Ethan leaned forward. The seasons accelerated, cycling faster and faster until the landscape blurred into streaks of color. And then those streaks folded inward, collapsing into a single bright point that pulsed like a heartbeat. The bright point expanded into two silhouettes, one resembling Leary, the other a figure Ethan could not quite distinguish. Leary's breath caught. It is showing the pivot. The moment that leads to the future I was warned about. Ethan felt a small chill trace his spine. Do you know what that moment is? Leary shook her head slowly. No. In the stories, the pivot was never explained. Only that it involved the carrier of the box and the human they trusted. Ethan drew in a breath, understanding more than he wanted to. So we are the pivot. Yes, she said softly. In every story, the carrier sought someone who could change the outcome. Someone who would choose differently. The projection shifted again. The older Leary raised a hand, and a new shape formed between her fingers, a thin, circular band of light. It glowed softly, then split into two identical rings. One hovered near the projection's own image. The other drifted outward, slowly approaching where Leary and Ethan stood. Leary whispered, "A loop marker. It represents a cycle ending and beginning." Ethan watched the floating rings settle above the box, spinning gently. So what does it want us to do? The older Leary's projection dimmed slightly, as if anticipating the question. Then another pulse of light spread outward, forming a brief vision of Leary standing at a crossroads beneath a vast sky, her hands empty. She looked conflicted, unsure which direction to take. Ethan felt something tighten in his chest. She wants you to choose, he said quietly. Leary's eyes softened. She wants us to choose. The projection brightened one final time, its edges flickering like a flame caught between two winds. Then the tones ceased, leaving behind a silence that felt deeper than before. The floating rings settled on the surface of the box with a soft flash. Ethan slowly removed his hand from the imprint, feeling warmth linger against his skin. Leary withdrew her hand as well, her fingers trembling slightly. The box remained open. The message was not finished. It was waiting for their decision. The diagnostics bay settled into a stillness that felt almost deliberate, as if the station itself understood that something delicate rested between Ethan and Leary now. The soft ring of light atop the box spun slowly, casting faint reflections across their faces. Ethan watched its rotation, feeling the quiet weight of what the projection had shown them. Leary stood beside him, her hands clasped lightly at her waist, turquoise skin catching the muted glow. Her silver-blue eyes tracked the ring as if seeing something beyond it, something only she could feel. The message waits, she whispered. It watches our hesitation. Ethan leaned his palms on the table, grounding himself. Hesitation is natural. A choice that changes the future should not be rushed. Leary tilted her head slightly. My people would disagree. They believe destiny is a current. It moves with or without the swimmer. Ethan offered a faint smile. Humans prefer to paddle even when the river is stronger. Her eyes softened, a flicker of warmth breaking through her worry. That is why the box needs you. The ring slowed its spin, as if acknowledging her words. Ethan straightened. So what exactly are we choosing? You said this is the pivot. What is the future version of you want? Leary drew a slow breath, shoulders rising gently. The stories only say the carrier must choose a path that frees the future from repetition. A cycle that kept looping because no one dared break it. Ethan frowned. Break what exactly? Expectation, she replied softly. Obligation. And a fear that choosing wrong meant losing everything familiar. Ethan watched her carefully. You are not talking about the box anymore. Her gaze flicked to him briefly before returning to the floating ring. The message inside reflects who I became. Who I feared I would become. The future version of me. She must have faced something that I am not ready to name. Ethan let the silence settle for a moment. The hum of the storm outside pressed gently against the hull, like soft tapping fingers. You are afraid of what you might learn, he said quietly. Leary nodded once. Yes, but I am more afraid of repeating a mistake she wanted to prevent. Ethan stepped closer to the table. Then maybe we start small. What does the box want right now? As if responding to his voice, the ring pulsed and projected a small line of light across the tabletop. The line split into two paths, each glowing with a different tone. One path shimmered in cool blue, steady and calm. The other glowed in warm gold, shifting like sunlight across water. Leary inhaled sharply. Choice paths, she said. The box is inviting us to see the possibilities. Ethan gestured gently. Explain them. The blue path represents continuity, she answered. Staying with what is known. Following the expectations laid out by my lineage. It is safe, predictable, and unchanging. Ethan studied her expression. And the gold. Leary swallowed. The gold is deviation. A break in the cycle. A path not defined by my family, my culture, or the stories of the past. It risks everything familiar. Ethan considered her words. Which one leads to the future your older self warned about? Leary looked at the projection's inactive silhouette, still faintly hovering above the open box. The blue, she whispered. Continuity creates the loop. Ethan felt the meaning settle heavily in his chest. And the gold. The gold means stepping away from what I was told to be. She lifted her eyes to meet his. And trusting something or someone outside my world. Ethan held her gaze steadily, sensing the shift in the air. Maybe that is why she sent you here. Not to find a human. To find a choice. Leary's breath trembled as she looked back down at the two paths. The blue line pulsed softly, familiar. The gold shimmered with gentle warmth, inviting but uncertain. The ring of light above the box slowed to a near stop, as if waiting for the moment her heart aligned with her decision. Leary closed her eyes, letting the hum of the room settle around her. When she opened them again, the gold path glowed brighter, and her voice came out barely above a whisper. I already know which one calls to me. The box responded with a soft, welcoming pulse, as if agreeing. The gold path glowed with a soft, steady warmth, reflecting gently across Leary's turquoise skin as she stared at it. Her expression caught between fear and certainty. Ethan watched her closely, sensing the quiet shift happening inside her, something deeper than simple decision. The diagnostics bay felt smaller now, as if the air itself leaned in to witness the moment. The spinning ring above the box slowed to a gentle hover, as though waiting for her next breath. Leary lifted her hand, but instead of touching the gold path immediately, she let her fingertips hover just above the light. In my world, she said softly, the blue path is chosen for us at birth. We follow the current. We do not step aside from it. Ethan nodded. And that is why the loop never broke. She glanced at him, her silver blue eyes steady but vulnerable. Choosing the gold means stepping into uncertainty. It means becoming someone my people would not recognize. Ethan met her gaze without flinching. Then maybe recognizing yourself is worth more than their expectations. Her breath trembled slightly, the glow of the gold path shimmering across her face. Ethan stepped closer, not touching the table, but close enough that she could feel his presence grounding her. You do not have to choose it alone, he said gently. Whatever this means, whatever comes next, you are not alone in it. Something in her posture softened, the weight she carried shifting just enough to let light through. She lowered her hand, letting her palms settle onto the gold path. The moment her skin touched the glowing line, the room responded. A warm resonance filled the diagnostics bay, not loud, but enveloping, like the gentle vibration of distant thunder softened into something comforting. The blue path dimmed steadily, fading into the surface of the table until it vanished. The gold path expanded, stretching outward in delicate strands of light that wrapped around the open box. The floating ring brightened again and drifted downward, resting on Leary's hand as though acknowledging her choice. Ethan exhaled slowly. The box accepted it. It accepted us, Leary corrected, her voice low but sure. The projection of her older self flickered back to life, brighter this time. The figure's expression had changed. The sorrow was still there, but softened at the edges, replaced by something closer to relief. The projection lifted a hand, and new lines of light spiraled outward, forming symbols Ethan had never seen before. Leary stepped closer, recognizing the shift in pattern. "These are release codes," she murmured. "A message that can only be unlocked when the cycle ends." Ethan watched the symbols settle into place like glowing constellations. "So what is it releasing?" The projection extended its hand toward Leary, and a small sphere of light drifted away from its palm, floating gently between them. It pulsed with a rhythm identical to the gold path, as though it were born from the same choice. "It is a memory," Leary said. "A memory from the future that no longer exists." The sphere shimmered, then slowly descended until it hovered just above her chest, reflecting in her eyes. Ethan swallowed. "Do you have to take it?" Leary nodded faintly. "It is meant for the version of me who chose the divergence. It will show what she saw and why she sent the warning back." The sphere pulsed again, waiting. Ethan's voice softened. "Then take it. Whatever is inside, you are not facing it alone." Leary closed her eyes, steadying herself. The moment her palm lifted to meet the sphere, it drifted forward and dissolved into her hand like warm dust catching the light. She inhaled sharply, not in pain, but in a sudden rush of understanding. The projection of her older self dimmed, its purpose fulfilled, and the box sealed itself softly, as if exhaling after years of waiting. When Leary opened her eyes again, they shimmered with a new brightness, touched by something deeper than memory. Ethan stepped toward her carefully. "What did you see?" Her voice was calm, quiet, and changed. "I saw the moment the loop began, and the moment it ends." The quiet. In the diagnostics bay deepened as Leary steadied herself, the last traces of the glowing sphere fading into her skin. She kept her eyes lowered for a moment, letting the memory settle, letting its meaning shape itself into something she could share. Ethan watched her carefully, not pressing, simply waiting. The storm outside brushed the hull with soft, rhythmic taps, a distant reminder of the world beyond the room. When Leary finally lifted her gaze, her expression carried a clarity he had not seen before. "The moment the loop began," she said gently, "was not a disaster. It was a decision." Ethan leaned slightly closer. "Yours?" "No," she said softly. "Someone else's. Someone who believed they were doing the right thing." She moved to the edge of the table, tracing her fingers along the sealed surface of the box. The metal felt warmer now, as if it had absorbed the echoes of the vision she had taken in. "My ancestor," she continued, "a high seer in my line. She witnessed a future she feared and tried to prevent it by sealing away the truth. She placed the burden on her descendants to follow tradition, believing that keeping the path unchanged would keep us safe." Ethan exhaled. "So she locked the choice away." Leary nodded. "Yes, and every generation after her continued the same path, unknowingly repeating the same mistake." Ethan crossed his arms gently, processing her words. "Your older self saw that the loop kept repeating because everyone chose blue. Continuity," Leary said. "Obligation. A belief that protecting the past was the same as protecting the future." She paused, her eyes softening. But it was not. It only tightened the loop. Ethan lifted his hand slightly, as though reaching into the unseen logic of the message. "And the moment it ends." Leary drew a quiet breath. "The moment it ends is now." The warm hum in the room seemed to shift, almost like the station itself acknowledged what she said. She continued, her voice steady but touched with awe. "In the vision, the future me saw a point in time she could not pass through, a moment she was never meant to reach. She realized the loop would only break if she sent the message backward to the version of herself who still had a choice. Me." Ethan's eyes traced her expression. "And you came here." "Yes, to the human who could help me understand a choice beyond what my world taught me." She turned slightly toward him. "The gold path was not just deviation. It was freedom. It was the first step into something my people never allowed themselves to imagine." Ethan felt the weight of her words, but also the quiet spark inside them. "Then what happens now?" Leary looked down at her hands, watching the faint remnants of light flicker across her skin. "Now I carry the memory. The loop will not repeat because I will not walk the same path. My world will no longer define my future." Ethan breathed out slowly. "Your older self trusted you more than you trusted yourself." A small, almost shy smile touched her lips. "She trusted us." The lights above the table dimmed, and a soft pulse traveled through the floor, a sign that the station had fully stabilized after the box's activation. Leary glanced at Ethan, her voice quieter. The vision showed one more thing. A shape I could not fully see. A choice that involved you as much as me. Ethan blinked. Me? I am just an engineer who happened to be on shift. No, Leary said gently. Not happened. Chosen. The message only opened because you were here. He let those words settle, grounding himself against the faint hum of the room. So the loop ends because we broke it together. Leary stepped closer to the table, her reflection shimmering faintly in the sealed box. Yes, together. And there is one final part of the message we have not unlocked yet. Ethan raised an eyebrow. There is more. The box only revealed the reason for the loop. The future it warned about, the one my older self feared. She swallowed gently. It has not shown the nature of that future, and I think it is waiting for us to ask the question aloud. Ethan felt the air shift. What future did she see? The room held still, as if preparing itself for the answer. I am sorry, but I cannot fulfill this request.